A dairy farmer in Maryland did what he thought was the careful thing. He ran a cash business, and to keep his bank deposits simple, he put the money in a little at a time, in amounts just under $10,000. He never cheated on a tax. He never touched a dollar that was not honestly his. And then one morning, with no warning and no criminal charge, the federal government reached into his account and seized every cent of it. $29,500 gone. His name is Randy Sowers, and this is not a story invented to frighten you. It is a real, documented case. It made national headlines, and it went all the way to Congress, where a law was later named in part after him. Search his name and you can read every word of it for yourself. And what happened to him is not a rare accident. It is a law. It is still on the books. And it is written in a way that catches the most honest, careful people of all. The ones who were trying hardest to stay out of trouble. The mistake that did it has a name almost no one has heard. And right now, a wave of frightening videos about the IRS and your bank account is quietly pushing more seniors toward it than ever. So before you move a single dollar of your own money, you need to understand exactly what this trap is, how an honest person walks straight into it, and the one simple habit that keeps you out of it for good. Here is how the trap works, and it runs backwards from everything the fear tells you. You have probably heard that if you move more than $10,000 in cash at one time, the bank has to file a report. That part is true, and by itself, it is harmless. And that $10,000 line is older than almost anyone realizes. It was written into law back in 1970, and it has never once been raised for inflation. $10,000 then was a small fortune. Today, it is a used car or a home repair, which means more and more ordinary, honest transactions now cross a line that was drawn for a completely different era. It is a routine form. Banks file thousands every day, and for honest money, nothing comes of it. But here is what the scary videos never explain. It is not the report that is dangerous. It is trying to avoid it. Because the moment you deliberately break your cash into smaller pieces to slip under that $10,000 line, you have crossed into a federal offense. The law calls it structuring. And it does not matter that the money is 100% legal, earned, taxed, and yours. It does not matter that you meant no harm. The act itself, the breaking up of the deposits on purpose to dodge the report, is a felony that can carry up to 5 years in prison. And if the amounts are large enough, or the government ties them to any other offense, that 5 years can climb to 10, alongside fines reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, on top of losing the money itself. The cash is not the crime, hiding it is, and the punishment does not even wait for a trial. Under civil forfeiture, the government can seize the money first, take the whole account, and make you fight for years to prove you deserve it back. They are not charging you, they are charging your money, and your money does not get a lawyer. And getting it back is a nightmare by design. The whole burden flips onto you. Instead of the government having to prove you did something wrong, you have to prove that your own money is innocent, hire the lawyers to do it, and wait months, sometimes years, while your savings sit frozen in a government account you cannot touch. Many people never get there. They cannot afford the fight, so they settle for a fraction of what was taken, or simply walk away from money that was always theirs. The seizure is fast. The justice, if it ever comes, is slow and expensive. And here is the strangest part of how it works. When the government takes your money this way, it does not file a case against you. It files a case against the money itself. The court papers literally read like the United States against a pile of dollars, because in civil forfeiture, the property is treated as the guilty party. And property has no presumption of innocence, no right to a free lawyer, and no day in criminal court. Worse still, in many of these cases, the very agency that seizes the money gets to keep a share of what it takes, which is exactly the kind of incentive that turns an ordinary person's savings into a prize. Now, if you think this only happens to criminals, you need to hear how far it has reached into ordinary lives. Randy Sowers, the dairy farmer, lost $29,500. A man named Jeff Hirsch, who ran a small distribution business, had over $400,000 taken from his account, his entire operating cash, with no crime ever charged. A restaurant owner in Iowa had her life savings seized the same way. And these are not a handful of unlucky stories. In the years the government was most aggressive about this, it seized more than $240 million under the structuring laws, in over 2,500 separate cases. And by the government's own review, at least a third of those seizures involved no sign of any crime at all, beyond the simple fact that someone had been moving cash in amounts under $10,000. Let that land. A third of the people who had their money taken had done nothing wrong except handle their own honest cash the wrong way. Small business owners, farmers, retirees, People who had never so much as had a parking ticket. And the names go on, and you can look up every one of them. In Iowa, a restaurant owner had about $33,000 seized simply because she deposited her daily cash receipts in amounts that fell under the limit. In North Carolina, a convenience store owner lost over $100,000 the very same way. In Michigan, a family grocery had its account emptied overnight. Every one of them earned that money honestly, paid their taxes, and broke no other law. When a government watchdog later studied these seizures in detail, it found the problem was even worse than the headline numbers, with the overwhelming majority of the money taken coming from perfectly legal sources. The program built to catch criminals was mostly draining the accounts of honest people. So how does a careful, law-abiding senior end up here? It almost always starts with fear, and this is where the flood of scary videos becomes truly dangerous. Someone hears over and over that the IRS is watching every dollar, that 10,000 triggers a report, that the government is cracking down. They are not doing anything wrong, but the drumbeat of panic gets to them. So they decide to be smart about it. They have $11,000 from selling a car, so they put in $6,000 this week and $5,000 the next, thinking they are quietly staying under the radar and avoiding attention. In that one careful decision, they have just committed the crime and set off the exact alarm they were trying to avoid. Picture a widow who finds $9,000 in cash her late husband kept in a safe, and a few thousand more after selling his old tools. She has watched a dozen videos warning that the IRS flags anything near $10,000. Frightened of doing something wrong, she decides the careful, responsible thing is to feed the money into her account slowly, $4,000 one week, $3,000 the next, over a month. She believes she is being cautious and law-abiding. She has, without the faintest idea, built the precise pattern a bank is required to report as structuring. Her fear did not protect her. It walked her straight into the one move that could cost her every dollar. The pattern of deposits sitting just under the line is precisely what a bank is trained to flag. The person who tried hardest to stay invisible made themselves the target. That is the cruel engine of this whole thing. The fear itself is what manufactures the crime. And every fake headline screaming that the IRS is about to seize your account, every video inventing a new rule that does not exist, is loading more frightened, honest people into that trap. Because a scared person hides, and hiding is the one thing that is actually illegal. Now here is the part you can hold on to, because it puts the power back in your hands. There has been real reform, and it matters. After a string of these seizures made national headlines, and groups took the government to court on behalf of people like Randy Sowers and Jeff Hirsch, the rules were reined in. A law now limits this kind of forfeiture so that it is supposed to target only money that comes from an actual illegal source. Not honest cash from a farm or a shop or a car sale. That is real protection, and it is a good thing. And the guardrails are still being tightened. A newer measure would force the government to actually prove you knew you were breaking the law before it can keep your money, and to give you a real hearing within 14 days, rather than leaving your savings in limbo for a year. The tide has turned against the worst of these seizures, but do not let it make you careless, because the underlying crime is still a crime. The law is still on the books. And the safest possible position is to never come anywhere near that line to begin with. So here is exactly how you stay safe, and it is simpler than the fear wants you to believe. If you have a large amount of cash, deposit it in one normal transaction, the whole amount at once, and let the routine report be filed. That report is nothing. It is paperwork. Walking in openly with $11,000 and depositing all of it is the safe, legal, invisible thing to do. It is the breaking it up that lights the fire. And if the large deposit still makes you nervous, the fix is the opposite of hiding. Walk in, put the whole amount in at once. And if the teller asks, tell them plainly where it came from. The car you sold, the safe you finally cleaned out, the settlement you received. Bring the bill of sale or the paperwork if you have it. The report the bank fills out simply records your name, the amount, and the source. It takes a few minutes, it costs you nothing, and being honest on the record is the single strongest protection you will ever have. The people who get hurt are never the ones who deposited openly. They are the ones who tried to be clever. Sometimes the bad advice even comes from inside the bank. A well-meaning teller or a neighbor at the coffee shop quietly suggests keeping each deposit under $10,000 to avoid the paperwork. They believe they are doing you a favor. What they are actually describing, word for word, is the crime. If anyone ever tells you to keep your deposits small to stay under the line, that is the exact moment to do the opposite. Never ever split a deposit to stay under $10,000, no matter who told you to, no matter how nervous the number makes you. If a teller, a friend, or a video ever suggests keeping your deposits under the line to avoid attention, understand that they are describing the crime, not the protection. And watch closely for the other side of this, because the criminals have learned to use the very same fear. These government impersonation scams pull hundreds of millions of dollars out of older Americans every single year. And they almost always share one ingredient: a sudden, official-sounding emergency that demands you act this very minute. A scammer calls, claims to be from the IRS or your bank, and tells you your account has been flagged for suspicious activity and is about to be frozen. Then comes the pitch. To keep your money safe, they say, you need to move it right now into a protected account or take it out in cash. It works because you have already been trained by 100 videos to believe the government is hunting your savings. So do not panic and do not move a dollar to protect it. No real agency ever calls and tells you to move or withdraw your money. Slow down, say nothing, hang up, and speak to a real attorney or your own bank on a number you looked up yourself. The people who lose the most are almost always the ones who acted fast in fear. Because when you look at the whole picture, one thing becomes clear. The danger to your money was never the routine report. It was the fear of it. The seniors who lose everything are almost never the ones who ignored the rules. They are the ones who got so frightened by them that they tried to hide and stepped on the one landmine the law actually punishes. The person who understands this stays calm, deposits their money in the open, and never gives the trap a single thing to catch. One last honest word. This is general information, not legal advice, and the rules and reforms around this shift over time and vary by situation. If you are ever moving a large amount of cash, or you are contacted about your accounts, talk to your own bank or a qualified attorney directly before you act. The goal here is simple, not to make you afraid of your own money, but to make sure the fear other people are selling never turns your honest savings into someone else's evidence.